and shiny.
Subscribe to Simply Bitcoin.
Is this the intro music?
Yeah, I do it myself.
Oh, cool.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome in. You made it to another episode of the Meme Factory podcast. This is stream test number 60. This evening, we are joined by none other than Alan Farrington, Rocky the Squirrel himself. Alan, if you could take a moment and give everybody here the elevator speech of who the fuck you are and what the fuck you do.
Oh, I don't even have a speech. I have like 4 words or something. This is what they always say as my bio when I'm at like a conference or something like that. It's always just writer and investor. That's it. I sometimes ask them to say shit poster as well, but it depends on like, how big a PR team they have. If they, eventually that gets vetoed. But I think that's more important. That's what I'm known for, at least.
It came through our PR team just fine, so I'm glad you brought it up. Don't think it's good.
Should probably just drop the writer investor stuff. No one really cares about that.
No, not at all. Just the shit posting is really what
professional
gets you the most attention. Yeah. All right, so I'm not sure if you've ever seen the show before. You know how it works. We get most of our ad revenue in a particular way. It's that the sponsors require our guests to read the ad. So just now I've sent you the ad copy that was sent to us. It's a little bit of an iffy sponsor this week, but needs to be read so we get paid. So when you get a second,
this is pretty long. Okay,
it's not that long. Just shut up and you read it.
Do you want me? Should I read it first, or should I read it aloud without knowing what it is?
You can do whatever you like. As long as it gets read, we get paid.
I mean, sorry, no, I absolutely vouch for this.
Yeah,
I completely stand by whatever it is I'm about to say.
Perfect.
Excellent.
That's cool. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alan Farrington, and this episode of the Meme Factory podcast is brought to you by the genius altruistic mind of Sam Bankman-Fried. The Bookcinerator 3000, because just learning from your past isn't good enough. We must repeat it. Und burn sie Books. In the idiotic words of SBF, quote, if you wrote a book, you fucked up, end quote. And to back up his highly regarded words with actions, he has coupled his ability to make money disappear into thin air with his ironic hatred of documentation of any type. The Bookcinerator 3000 will make history of any book within 3 seconds flat, which is still faster on average than the time it took to leverage an FTX deposit to the moon. So hop on over to our store and pick up your very own Bookcinerator 3000 today, and you'll be cooking the books like SBF in no time.
Yay!
Yay.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I want one.
We get paid now.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yes, this whole thing has now been funded. Excellent.
We can continue.
Yes.
We're running a tight ship around here.
So what's up? What's this doll you've got in front of you?
Oh, you don't know what this is?
Oh, I do, but I want you to explain it.
Oh, okay. Well, so I actually don't really know that much about I see this all the time on Twitter. I'm not sure I actually know the backstory of like the character.
Okay.
But it's very cute. This actual version, though, like the one that I'm holding in my hand, this was the present that I got my wife from Pacific Bitcoin, which I did in kind of a panic because I was there for like 4 or 5 days or something. And I said I would get her a present, and I obviously didn't mean that at all. But then I remembered that I'd said it immediately before leaving, and I was looking around the merch store that they have there, and I don't think she really. I mean, she doesn't want this either, but she definitely doesn't want everything else they had, and this was like the closest. So his name's.
I'm gonna have to interrupt you.
Way,
Rusty has a question. Sorry, we can't hear any more about it. Rusty, what's up?
Hey, Alan. I was just wondering, is your wife in the room with us right now?
No, she's not.
Is there a follow-up question?
Rusty,
No,
hold on. We gotta pause this.
No. I was just making a joke about the wife not existing.
I got you. Well, he's not a shit coin.
Yeah,
I get it.
So
you know what's
we gotta give some back for that, because I was on the phone with Rusty yesterday, and I was talking about a girl I've been going out with, and he used the exact same joke. So
is she in the room with you right now?
God damn it. God damn it. What are you doing?
Throwing him right under the bus.
Honesty.
So I'm guessing
You know
they
what's quite
didn't
funny
have
about
any
that
book
question,
generator
right? Like, if
3000s
you ask
left.
that at almost any other, well, maybe not almost any other time. There's like, it's quite late here, so she's gone to bed already. But there are many other times you could have asked that where it would have been really funny, because where I am, I'm in my kitchen right now, right? And both me and my wife work from home. But we don't live, like, our apartment's kind of quite small. So she works in the living room and I work in the kitchen. But obviously every now and then she comes in, right? And occasionally that will be when I'm on a call. And so she'll notice that and she'll be like really quiet. She'll be like obviously right behind where, you know, the screen is and where the camera is pointing this way. And then I just try not to laugh at whatever she's doing. And I try to stay serious while I'm, you know, working. But it is entirely possible that you can be like, is your wife in the room now? And I'd be like, yeah, she's over there. She's totally real. She's right there. She's trying not to make any noise.
That's interesting because Becca also does her best work in the kitchen as well.
Yes, I do. And actually,
Good
speaking
segue,
of
Sean.
the kitchen, and Greg forgot, I'm going to take your sandwich order.
Totally
So
forgot.
I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. Yes. So you can pick one of my sandwiches here, and then I'll have my pigeon carriers bring it over. So we have a Bitcoin Fixes This bison burger. So it's a locally sourced bison burger grilled on an S9 by Guy Swan.
Ooh.
Second, we have a Books Are for Losers lettuce wrap. 6 lettuce wraps filled with shredded FTX non-existent financial documents. And here at the bottom, our trusted house specials, Yellow's Don't Stop Believing Steak Sammy, which has been marinated in Red Bull for 372 days. So, I will take your order now.
It seems like a trick question. You obviously have to go for one.
Or you
like
can
number one or
select
just one
my
of the choices?
sandwiches.
Yeah, the isn't Bitcoin Fixes It burger, that's got a little one beside it.
Yeah. Oh, that was just for me, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't mean like you can only order one thing. I mean, I'll take 2.
You can order all 3. So, I mean, do you want Guy Swan grilling your bison burger?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Or
He looks like he knows how to grill.
Yeah. Or some lettuce wraps filled with.
Not really.
Or Yellow. He's not here, but you know, he's working hard on marinating the steak.
He's certainly marinating.
I feel like it might be too marinated. I don't know. Is that like wine? You know, like it gets better and better, but then eventually it peaks and then it gets worse.
Yeah,
Possibly.
that's for sure.
I would have thought like 1 or 2 days would be the ideal.
Doesn't he marinate with Red Bull too?
Yeah, marinated
Yeah.
Red Bull.
Yeah. And a lot of Malacca as well.
A lot of Malacca.
So, you know, I don't know if you can trust a puppet, so you need to take that into consideration too.
Oh, Rusty's gonna get in an accident.
Rusty, no.
All right, so Alan, is that the order? The number one, the Bitcoin Fixes
Oh yeah,
It burger.
definitely the burger.
Yeah,
Okay.
excellent.
All right, we'll
You
she'll
get
have that ready
free
for you.
merch with that one, free hat, that burger.
Rusty.
That's great actually. I love Bitcoin. I don't know if you can tell. I'm wearing a Bitcoin merch hat right now.
Oh, nice.
Most of the time, actually, I'm wearing Bitcoin merch caps.
Is that because you like Bitcoin or because you're balding?
It's preparation for when I probably will be
Preparation.
balding.
Okay.
The thing is that
Why
like,
not both?
so I have this good trick, right? Where right now, sometimes I wear a cap, sometimes I don't. So people are like, he does have hair. I see. But then I just get them used to
You trick
to
him.
both of them, to the fact that I have hair and that I like caps. And then eventually I start balding. I only ever wear caps, but nobody knows.
So which preparation is this? Have you already sourced preparations A through G?
Unfortunately, I don't know what any of this means because I haven't actually had to look into it yet.
Okay. So
Is
this
it not?
Oh,
So it is preparation H. All right.
If
Great.
you say so. Is that the best one?
This is
Is
like
that
the
like
Austin
the
Powers
most
movie.
recent?
On the whole, I feel pretty good about preparation H.
So dumb.
All right, so the toy you got for your wife is a lovely toy. It's created by a woman by the name, and I might mispronounce her name, but I think it's Lena or Lina Seish, and its name is.
Oh yeah, no, I know that. I just don't know
but yeah,
where it came from, because I feel like I was aware of it. I became aware of it after it was very much already a thing, and so I don't know if there's like a backstory to it at all.
Yeah, I need one. So
yeah,
Lena,
I saw
Lina,
her.
after watching,
I didn't speak to her, but she was there in LA.
How many people were in?
I didn't speak to you. I didn't speak to you when I was down there in LA. How did we not see each other out there?
You're hard. Get what you want.
You're hard to find, Sean. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can't really pick you out of a crowd. It's hard. I don't really blame him.
I was by the basketball court too.
Basically invisible. Like if I wanted to avoid Sean, I would just avoid the basketball court. Is that what you did?
Yeah, I didn't really like. I went over there once or twice, but it didn't really seem like anything was happening. But then there was a lot of tweets about how it was apparently very exciting. So I don't know. I obviously just wasn't looking at the right time. I gather there was some quite involved competition, but I never saw that.
Corey won a 3-point competition out there.
Did. I heard it was quite good.
That sounds like it was fixed.
It might be.
Now, now you may not have seen because you were banging out an article while you were there, which is impressive in and of its own.
Well, that definitely wasn't at the same time as the basketball. So the reason that happened is that I was just ridiculously jet lagged because I got in like the day of, I think, or maybe the day before. I forget exactly when. But I arrived and just like started doing things right away, basically. But it's an 8-hour time difference or something. And I just never got over that. And so on the Friday morning, I think, I woke up at like 4. And the other funny thing was that my panel was the Bitcoin not shitcoin panel, which is hilarious because like obviously they picked that title weeks ago and then it just got incredibly lucky, because the FTX thing was like 2-3 days before. The FTX thing actually happened while I was on the flight there.
Nice.
Right. So that's how close it was. And I was chatting to Jan about it before. Sorry?
I want to say it's like Sam Bankman tweeting before you left. Oh, everything's fine. There's an attacker coming after us, and then you land, and it's like, thank you, Steve Z, for taking over.
No, something similar to that happened, which I thought was even funnier. That right when I was about to take off, that was roughly when the rumors of it were first coming out. So I messaged a friend, being like, "Oh shit, I think FTX is going down," and then I just got on the plane, and then it's like a 10-11 hour flight or something. Yeah. So then when I got off the plane and got my messages again, there was one maybe 3 or 4 hours after the first one where he's like, nah, we definitely know if that was going to happen. And then 4 hours after that saying, oh shit, you were right. And then like 4 hours after that is when I read it, but I read them both at the same time. So I was like, suck it. But anyway, so I was very jet lagged. I woke up at like 4, and for the panel the day before, I'd been chatting to Jan about it, and so it was me, Lynn, and Jan, and then Peter McCormack was hosting it. But we like didn't need to prep anything at all, really. We were just all kind of laughing and riffing off how stupid this was. But I was saying to Jan that the day before, I did try to prep it like a little bit. I did try to write some notes for what might come up, but I ended up getting on this thread, which like it just became really long and like me typing it up in the notes, and it got to the point where I was like, I actually can't really talk about this because it's going to end up being like a 10-minute monologue or something. So I went from being really excited about it to then by the time I was done, I spent maybe 30 minutes or something like writing the whole thing out. When I got to the end, I was like, I actually really hope they don't ask me about this. Like, I hope this doesn't come up at all because I want to save this. And then as soon as we got off stage, I was like, yeah, it didn't come up. It's amazing. I can still do this. And then I did it the next morning when I was
now I have content.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, free content. Content I didn't waste on stage.
I got you. So to summarize, you did a poor job prepping for the event. Which led to a great job prepping for
too much. I did so much prep, I didn't even need to say this.
Okay, I got you. I see you're a hard worker. This is where we're landed on this. So, all right. So speaking of FTX, what everybody's curious about is where does the yield come from? And I think you might have a good answer for me.
I have the answer. It's not a good answer.
Tell me, where does the yield come from?
But everybody knows this by now. The yield is the friends we made along the way. Which actually, speaking of Bitcoin merch, I don't know if any of you guys know this, but I have a T-shirt that says that on it. Unfortunately, I'm not wearing it now. I wore it on another podcast like 3 days ago, also
okay.
talking about FTX. I made the point that time, but therefore it is now dirty, unfortunately.
Okay. So you're making us feel good, feel special.
Yeah.
All right.
So I didn't know what you wanted to talk about. That one was explicitly about this, and it was also, to be fair, right? It was like a sort of a normie tradfi one where I was getting brought in as the crazy Bitcoiner. And so I was especially keen to get that meme on their radar. Whereas honestly, I thought you guys all knew this. Like, you don't need to read it on my T-shirt. You like live on Twitter, don't you?
Yes. Yes. We've built our house of cards on that platform.
Yep.
All right. So you also said recently that you were riffing on a Croesus piece, the Yuppie Elite, and why they don't get Bitcoin. And
Oh yeah, I remember saying something about. I mean, that's great. Like, I do read that again every now and then.
that's a great
What
piece.
exactly did I say? It was like that I wanted to write.
You said you wanted to write an article about.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, right? I do that a lot. Like, I very often tweet that I'm going to write things I don't end up writing.
No. I'm familiar with the practice. I tweeted the other day that I was going to make a meme out of an Anthony Pompliano video, and I've done nothing. So.
Okay, but why do you do it though? Because I actually have quite a.
Because
cynical...
I wanted to.
Oh,
and then I got into the weeds, and I was like, I don't know if there's anything here.
Yeah, that's way more naive than my approach. Mine is like totally taking advantage of my audience. The reason I do it is that if I tweet that I'm going to write about something and then it gets enough engagement, that encourages me to write about it. If it doesn't, I'm like, it's probably not a good idea then.
Smart. I'm gonna go back and see the likes on that Pomp tweet.
So Alan only writes for the engagement, doesn't write for the purity of it.
I told you I'm a professional shit poster.
This is what we all do, Sean.
All right, Rusty, what you got?
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I'll talk about doing a graphic of something, and if I get enough engagement, then I've already got the engagement, and I don't need to actually do the graphic. So I'm like
it's the same
opposite.
result, Rusty.
The
Same
thought that
result.
counts.
I like that. No, I like Rusty's process. I think he wins. Oh man.
Thanks,
so
Greg.
You're welcome. So it intrigued me. I'm hoping you're going to write an article on why the Yuppie Elite, who the Yuppie Elite are, and why they might embrace shitcoins. So,
why they embrace shitcoins? Yeah.
What are your?
I mean, it was
kind
of the same thing as that article, though, right? It's like that. That's what gave me the idea.
Well, it's the inverse of the article. I mean, if Safe can write a book on the Bitcoin standard and then write another book on the fiat standard.
Not the why the Yuppie Elite. What's it? It's not hate, is it? What's the title of the original?
That's why
one?
they don't get Bitcoin. I don't know
why they don't get.
He used a smarter word.
Oh, I didn't mean that one. I meant my one. I meant the crypto is Silicon Valley one. It's like an extension of that. It's the same thought.
Yeah, you said crypto or Silicon Valley is peak fiat, and crypto is peak Silicon Valley or something similar.
Yeah. I think it's just kind of an extension of the same thing with less focus on Bitcoin. I think you just need to also, like, everybody knows this. I'm sure you don't really need this explained, but that Silicon Valley is kind of, it has enormous cultural cachet, right? It's cool to, well, maybe not anymore. Maybe hopefully that's changing now, but for a very long time, and increasingly so over time, it was cool to be associated with Silicon Valley. So that was basically where I was going with that. Therefore, you accidentally slip into shitcoinery if you're, minded to like follow these hype chase, basically.
Why? What is the culture in Silicon Valley that leads them to liking shitcoins, though?
So it's a bunch of things. I mean, the article's not very long. I can just pull it up and read it to you right now if you want.
I want your thoughts. I want your unadulterated thoughts.
You're gonna do Guy Swan's job? Come on.
I think he's done it already. Actually, it's out. It came out.
He did.
Put him out of
we
business.
could play that. We could all listen to it. It could be like those TikToks where half the TikTok is literally just someone watching the other TikTok. Like we could do that.
It's like a reaction. The reaction of it.
Okay, no, sorry. The question, right, is why does Silicon Valley like shitcoin? So I think most of what I was saying was kind of tongue in cheek. Like, it's not a super serious analysis. I'm basically just taking the piss out of it. But I think there is like a kernel of truth in it. So
absolutely,
there's a couple of things. So one is that they're their own financial position is predicated on increasingly needing to chase yield. So this is something I actually don't think most people really know this, because you have to be quite deep in the weeds of like how capital markets work, I guess, to go this far. I think most people's understanding is something like, or misunderstanding is something like, well, you know, Silicon Valley as an establishment, right, as like an entity, it has all this money to invest because it's made loads of money. It's made loads of really successful investments, and now they're just recycling that, which is not true at all, right? They get their money from pension funds, which are like orders of magnitude bigger in terms of, you know, how much capital they have to deploy. And so one of the 3 points basically that I make to start with is that they don't have all this money because they're amazing at investing. They have it because the wider world is increasingly broke, right? And needs to go further and further up the risk curve, or out the risk curve, to compensate for yields coming down and down, right? So ultimately central bank reserve rates, but therefore basically every interest rate is coming down and down and down. Real returns getting more and more expensive. The pension funds themselves have to go further out the risk curve, which means they have to allocate more to Silicon Valley. And then Silicon Valley is in the position where their mandate in the first place is you also have to generate more. Like your return profile and your risk profile needs to be even more skewed. So the argument I'm making is that like you can kind of see the progress of this in terms of what they're known for doing and the kind of things they're known for wanting to invest in and championing, becoming basically, you could say dumber and dumber, but to be nicer about it, I guess, more and more out there, like more and more moonshotty, and then you see more and more like ridiculous failures where you're like, how on earth could you possibly think this was going to work? But then occasionally something does actually go up 1,000 times. And so the argument is, well, crypto is just like the absolute extremity of that. It's like everything is dumb, but you know, maybe one will 1,000 or 10,000x. And so it's the natural financial profile of crypto is something that they're very used to anyway, and are constantly being pushed more and more in that direction. So that's one. I don't know if you want to dissect that a bit, or you want me to go into the other two.
Well, I wanted to back up and make sure that everybody understands the framework within which you're making this argument, and that's the framework that in order for the financial system to work, we've all agreed essentially that we need at least 2% inflation every year. So we need to debase the monetary supply by 2% every year in order to maintain the financial system that we have. And the compounding effects of that are that you have to chase yield, like you're saying. So you can't just sit on money. It doesn't work anymore. It's
worse than just that, though, because if it were kind of, I guess, static in that sense, if it were in fact only 2% inflation.
Well, 2% is the Fed funds target, right?
Yeah,
Well,
honestly, it's like completely disconnected from reality. But just for the sake of argument, if that was what was actually happening, what I just described would be nowhere near as bad. I mean, it probably wouldn't exist at all because it wouldn't have got this far.
I would disagree because of compound interest, right? On a long enough timeline, that 2% a year gets huge.
That's true, but you also progress through time. So from your perspective, it's still only ever, that current year, it's still only ever 2%. But it has a more insidious effect, which I was about to say, right? Which is that the longer that goes on, the more capital gets misallocated because of this price, like the price of capital being incorrect in the first place. And that's what begins to, I'd say, like not just compound, but accelerate almost, right? Because the more capital you've misallocated, the lower your real returns are going to start to be, which means you need to do this more to make up for that. And then it makes it worse. And then you need to do it more to make up for that. And this is what pushes you out the risk curve completely against everybody's will.
Right.
Well, and from the business standpoint too, right? If you think about what Michael Saylor would talk about at the beginning, was that, you know, a lot of these pensions didn't want to invest in MicroStrategy because they were already a mature company. And, you know, they had to, like, for them to grow, they had to grow exponentially every single year. With debasing money. And so if they're trying to grow exponentially, they can't do that once they're already a mature company. So then these pension funds would say, well, we would just go invest in the S&P 500 instead of investing specifically in a MicroStrategy.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's step one, right? So what they're saying there is we're going to move away from a specific, basically value investment. I don't really like that terminology, but like people more or less get what it means. Like, you know, mature company priced on its yield effectively, which is a funny link to all of this. You're going to move from that specifically to the S&P 500, which is maybe not a fair comparison because obviously that's, you know, it's like 500 companies rather than just one, but certainly it's up the risk spectrum because the median investment in that, what would you call it, like bucket, is significantly growthier and riskier than MicroStrategy is. And so basically what I'm saying is it's like that, but just over and over and over again, because eventually you'll get to the same point with the S&P 500. So actually, sorry, that's not hypothetical. That is literally exactly what has happened, right? So the movement the Sailor is describing from MicroStrategy to the S&P, because MicroStrategy isn't risky enough and isn't growthy enough, that just happens over and over again. So then you go from the S&P to like only, you know, the NASDAQ or like some tech index or something. And then you have to go to
junk bonds,
like some kind of absolute return thing, which is necessarily riskier. And then eventually you get to early stage VC, which is the riskiest of all. But now you have crypto, which is great. It's even dumber. It's even further out there. So yeah, eventually you have to get there. So that was kind of the point I was making, that there is one key difference though, which is that even though it's been completely corrupted, like all the incentives are wrong, all the prices are wrong, at least the principle of early stage venture capital is sound, right? You can actually generate returns that way. You can build real companies and real value and real wealth that way. What's really amusing is that it's been the signals, if you like, the not just the price signals, but I think the cultural signals as well have been so manipulated that it's become so extreme in Silicon Valley, like basically just the way people think about things, that they can't even tell that crypto is complete bullshit. It looks right enough that they're like, yeah, sure, let's put $50 billion into this. Why not?
Salmon on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Think about a guy like Rob Powell, who, you know, he's a career financial guy. And he used to be about Bitcoin, and one day he flipped to every single altcoin imaginable. And his whole idea was, well, they're just going to follow the trajectory of Bitcoin. You know, like Ethereum is just going to follow Bitcoin's price, and like based off of nothing other than charts. You know, he didn't look at what Ethereum actually is, what Bitcoin actually is, just purely off of, you know, it's industry like in his mind. And so if it's in the same industry, then it's going to have then it's going to have the exact same price trajectory. So, and that's what a guy who's going out to all these VCs is telling them, and they're eating it up.
Yeah. Yeah. And they would, so this is only like one sentence or something in the post, but they wouldn't have 40 or 50 years ago, if the same thing had been around then, the culture and everything I just mentioned, right? Their way of thinking wouldn't have been so perverted as to fall for this, because they were still actually making useful stuff then. They were doing because it's exactly like I was saying, it has a perfectly legitimate function. The investment rationale is sound. It just depends, how you do it. And I guess what pressures you're facing in the first place that motivate how you're deciding to do it. Like, are you investing in, I don't know, Apple or Intel or something like that? Or are you investing in Dogecoin?
Don't even say it.
Or FTT. Actually, that's a far better example, because Dogecoin, one, is a joke, and two, as far as I'm aware, isn't pumped by many, probably any, but maybe there is one or two, crypto VCs and hedge funds, whereas like FTT, I didn't even know what that was until last week, but like, of course, it was $10 billion or whatever.
All right, so hit me with the other two. You said that was the first setup.
Yeah. So that's the yield chasing.
Okay.
Right. The next one, what is it? Dematerialization. So this is a bit more abstract, I guess, but we actually covered some of it in the previous explanation anyway, but that and the motivation is the same, right? Again, it's because they're just their attitudes to investing have to get crazier and crazier, and they have to get further out the risk spectrum. And they have to, I think another consequence of that is kind of an intermediate step, is they have to get more and more software centric, right? Rather than actually making useful stuff. But basically the idea being that they start, this is why I deliberately used Intel and Apple as kind of joke examples, that they started off making useful stuff, selling useful stuff. Then they shifted, and this is obviously a generalization. This isn't every single investment, but like the norm, right? Is they then move to making and selling software primarily. Then they move to making and renting access to software. And then they move to making and renting access back to useful stuff again. And then it's tricky with all this because it's like kind of a joke, but they might actually believe it. Like I say it as a joke, but they probably don't. From that final step, they then go to just selling you like literally nothing at all. You just give them money and that's it. The exchange is completely dematerialized. You own nothing and you're happy, and that's the end of it. So like obviously that's not how they would pitch it, but I think that there's like a
Wait, did you just say they wouldn't pitch it as you'll own nothing and be happy? Because I think that pitch has been made.
Yeah, but not as a product. It's more as like a political program, right? I don't think they've quite got to the point yet where they just say, please give us money and we won't give you anything. But they're acting. So this is exactly what I was about to say, right? That they are acting out regardless, right? It's like the cultural push in this direction is so strong that they don't realize what it is they're actually saying anymore. And I think they justify all of this. And so this isn't a joke, right? This does actually extend to explaining their attitude towards crypto, I think, in large part. That transition from, the one end is like, well, I'll just buy actually useful stuff from you. And then it gets more and more dematerialized. Their rationalization of this is that it's efficient, right? That it's more, you can maybe even say it's like capital efficient. I don't know if that makes quite as much sense on like an individual basis, but you don't need to own everything, right? It's far, I can't really think of a word other than efficient actually. It's far more efficient to just only rent things exactly when you need them, right?
Just in time ownership?
Ooh. Yeah, something like that. Or well, not even ownership, just in time usage.
Just in time usage. There we go. Yeah.
But it's basically, it's like true on a technicality, but it's kind of a scam. Like it doesn't really make sense in some, like all the time. Like you just can't live your life that way. It's every now and then, if you know that you're going to need something, like exactly when you're going to need it and exactly how much, you can be a bit more, and also you're going to be able to get it, right? The provision is going to be absolutely fine. There's nothing to worry about. You can be like more exposed to that. You can be more vulnerable to that going wrong. But if you have that attitude to everything, then you're just constantly getting fucked, right? You just like, you own nothing and you're not happy because it's a terrible idea. And so I honestly think that's what motivates the cultural, I guess, embrace of crypto, because they see it as the next step in exactly that, like march to ever greater efficiency, but actually it's just like economic nonsense. That was number two. You own nothing, you're happy.
Yeah. This makes me think of like do you remember Cards Against Humanity?
Oh yeah.
No, I think I know what you're going to say.
Back, right? They literally sold shit to people in boxes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they advertised it and they said that they were going to do it, and then they did it and they sold a ton of it, right? So they're just like, and people got it, they're opening up this box and it was just literally full of shit. So
all right, hey, let's back up a second. Cards Against Humanity is one of my favorite games of all time.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
It's a fun game. It's a fun game.
Oh, I have a hot take on that though, right? It is good, provided you're playing it with people who are funny.
Yes.
Have you ever played it with people who are not funny? Because it's painful.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
That's basically just life in general.
But you should be removing those people from your life anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
If they're not funny,
That's probably true.
They can go be sad down at the pub.
I was gonna give one more example too. Was recently there was this girl who was selling her farts in a jar. Remember that?
Yeah.
For research
like-
purposes, where could one
Sean,
find
Sean,
said
we're
farts?
live right now. We're live right now, guys.
This is what I'm talking about. Like, this is the things that, like, Fiat has literally.
Sean, how
led
many
me
farts
to.
in a jar did you buy?
I mean, do we want to be honest? They smelled all right. I liked her brand. Her
I would
brand was
ask you.
on point.
I would ask you, how many? How many did you buy?
How many? 21.
It's a good number.
Jars or farts, or is it 1-to-1?
Ooh, good question.
Well, there's
Still
actually
like
a pie ratio. There's a pie ratio of farts in each jar. I bought 21 times 3.14, 159.
Do you get a travel size too?
Is that like a smaller size or is it a bigger
Yeah.
size?
3.14,
And you can
159,
take it with you on the
265,
go.
Yeah, it's for like being on an airplane or something.
97932.
Snap out of it, Greg.
Sorry, I
I
was just missing Labra. That's all.
I miss Labra.
All right, let's keep this moving. Number
Do
3.
we have a fake or not?
A what?
Fake or not?
What?
Fake or not?
What?
Okay, does no one else remember this from the chat that doesn't exist?
What?
Fake or non?
Fake or not?
Oh, fake or not?
No. We didn't get it set up tonight, Sean.
Yeah, it's not set up for tonight.
Yeah, sorry.
Unless
Sean.
you got a news piece that you want to share.
I could do one. I
Yeah.
could do one.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. He might. Well, okay. So I'm going to read a news headline to you, and you have to tell us: is it fake or not?
Okay.
Or not.
Just in, FTX co-founder files emergency legal document alleging Bahamas regulators instructed Sam Bankman-Fried to transfer company assets to the government.
Which government?
The Bahamian government. Fake or not?
Not.
Call him bullshit.
Correct. That is true. That is a true headline. The regulators in the Bahamas told him that he had to basically hack FTX and send his funds to the government in the Bahamas. What a world are we living in right now?
I think that's good for Bitcoin.
Yes.
As in, like, not if he did it, but as in, like, it's true that they asked him to do it. That's good for Bitcoin. That means they get it.
Everything's good for Bitcoin.
Well, yeah.
But he didn't. I don't think he even had any Bitcoin on his balance sheet at the time. So
I think he had one.
Oh, that's true.
Right?
Yeah,
Wasn't
they
it just
owed-
one Bitcoin.
1.1.
He had
Just one
Bitcoin.
sat.
That's better than the fractional reserve that in the United States that you need. It went down to 0%.
True. It's true.
During the pandemic.
He was doing
Oh,
infinitely
I
better.
heard such
Those
a, or actually I probably
guidelines.
read on Twitter such a good characterization of it, right? You ready for this? FTX is a fictional reserve bank.
Ooh.
I'm gonna start using that.
I like that.
Fractional, fictional.
You heard it here first. Mean Factory Podcast.
Well, I mean, someone
Ready?
else.
No, anybody watching, not you, Alan. God.
Well, they would have read it, but they wouldn't have heard it. So they heard it here first.
Fine.
Yeah, good point.
All right.
They did hear it heard first.
Let's go on to number 3. I don't want to miss out on all 3 pieces.
Oh
here.
yeah. What was number 3? Oh yeah. Monopolization of access, right? So this is picking up from, I think, probably the last point before it got to crypto, that on the march to dematerialization. So renting access to useful stuff, right?
Right.
And the thing here is that and again, it's tied in with all the same stuff, just chasing yield, further out the risk curve, more and more software centric, blah, blah, blah. But what's particularly nice, so what I'm trying to encapsulate with that is like, what do you call them as a whole? Platform marketplaces, I guess, which are, if you pull them off, are potentially amazing investments because they have network effects basically, and they have very, very little actual capital requirements. It's basically just a website and all the users do everything for you, right?
Right.
So that again, in a similar way to the dematerialization stuff, is it's kind of makes sense on a technicality that that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's sort of a Faustian bargain, I think is the way that I put it, that it's very short-sighted. It's very high time preference, basically, to get to allow this to happen as customers, because you're trading sort of very slight efficiency now, because it is really easy to use these things, right? It's good to have all this stuff in the same place. But you're trading that for the ability for them to rent seek from you basically forever. And it would in fact be far better. And incidentally, this is something that Bitcoin is probably going to enable to some extent. Be far, far better if what was uniform in terms of the marketplace was just the information, right? If you can, because that's really the benefit you get from it. Like that's the efficiency that the customers get, is being able to basically search everything at once. That's pretty much all it boils down to, and not have to constantly go around lots of different options, but just see it all and like organize it in a helpful way. That's super useful. But to go back to the title of the topic, the monopolization of access is really, really bad, because that's the part that they get to rent seek. And so again, the argument is that crypto is just like taking this to its completely idiotic extreme, where not only do you have to use their marketplace, you have no choice, right? It's not just the information, it's like accessing it at all requires going through them. You also have to use their money. Like in order to, you can't use like real money or normal money. You have to use the money that they have also.
Money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the last one. That's this other sort of weird similarity that I think they're culturally inclined to not realize is really stupid, basically. Like because they've come up with a version of it that's so similar that they just associate. They look at it and like, oh, okay, yeah, we kind of get that, but they don't get it at all, because it makes no sense.
It makes sense if you live in a world where to play on the Swift network, you have to use the Swift token.
Oh, the dollar.
I don't think that's what they're comparing. I think that's something that only Bitcoiners really like.
Well, it's fine if only Bitcoiners
as a
realize it,
point.
but would you disagree that it's similar? So, like on the FTX platform, they require you to use FTT token. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just playing here. But on the Swift platform or on the United States platform, you have to use Uncle Sam token.
I don't think that's a good example though, because the dollar is actually really useful precisely because you can use it everywhere.
That's just network effects, but it doesn't mean the platform's any different.
Yeah, but what they're pushing is like something that itself ought to have a network effect, but they're not letting you use the money that already has a network effect. It's like, use this network effect platform and also use our bullshit money on it.
I don't know. It sounds like
and it's basically
it sounds like you're describing the dollar to me.
It's like not only do they rent seek, right, but they like, it's almost like completely arbitrary, programmatic rent seeking, because they have to first give you the money that they then rent seek from you to use the thing.
How is that different?
That is true.
It's a dollar's money.
That's it, Dan. Again, it's just network effects.
No, this is good. This is why you shouldn't
effects.
be making this comparison.
And an army.
Right? Because if you try to push this comparison, you're inadvertently arguing or giving them the case to argue that these things are money, which they're not. It's precisely the fact
neither is the dollar.
It makes it so stupid.
Fine, go ahead. They can use that argument. It doesn't make my comparison any less relevant, right? You want to play on the Uncle Sam platform, you got to use Uncle Sam token. You want to play on the FTX platform, you got to use FTX token. It's the same fucking thing.
The platform is everything. It's like
exact network effects.
Isn't
if we bomb you enough, you have to use Uncle Sam token.
Yeah, isn't the definition of fiat a decree, right? So the dollar is decreed in the United States, and FTT is decreed on FTX.
I don't think that even works either, though, because first of all, I don't think it is decreed on FTX.
No, it's not.
You don't have to use it.
You can use the dollar.
I'm sorry. I just don't think this works. This isn't.
It's okay that you don't think it works, because in actuality, it works.
Okay, I'm waiting for the next article from Alan just disputing this argument.
Exactly. No, it's just gonna be me and him
Do you know
fighting
what I'll
on Twitter
do?
now.
I'll tweet that I'm gonna write it, but then I won't ever write it.
If we
Perfect.
generate enough interest, you will.
Yeah.
Who wants to have Alan prove Greg wrong? In
Yeah.
long
Retweet,
form.
retweet.
That's how you framed it. You would get way
If,
too much.
if you want to get us fired up, tell us we can't get some engagement on it.
Bunch of Bitcoiners. So speaking of writing, I want to know, because I flip flop on this one, but I want to know if writing energizes you or if it drains you.
Oh yeah, sure. I think it mostly energizes me, but I think there's an important caveat to that, which is that I don't do it to be energized, if that makes sense. It's not like, if I just write something, that'll be like, oh, what a great day. It's more like almost everything I write, I do it in order to clarify my own thinking in the first place. So actually, exactly the example I gave, right? So the Crypto Speak Silicon Valley article, that's exactly where that came from, because it started with me thinking like, shit, what am I going to say on stage if we get, if we get asked something like this, and then, going like batting it back and forth with Jan and being like, does this make sense? This kind of makes sense. Thankfully I ended up not saying it on stage because it would have been a complete like garbled mess, but having to write it then made me clarify what it was I actually thought in the first place. So that, which I do find energizing. So like, that's really, it's rewarding, I guess, when I'm on a roll with it, it's like, I'm jazzed up. But that has to be the starting point though. I have to have the idea first. I don't just like sit down and like, I need to get energy today.
I feel bad today. I need to write. It's
yeah.
Here's
exactly.
the idea. Now I feel good. Okay.
But no, it's definitely not draining though. Like I wouldn't do it in the first place unless I had almost exactly that like attitude and motivation. I don't think it's ever really drained me. I think maybe every now and then if I'm writing something that's just, almost everything I write is pretty long anyway, so this is kind of redundant, but like writing something longer and I've just been doing it for so long, like I've literally not got up for 5 hours or something, like then I'll be exhausted, but not, I think that's different. That's just like, I don't know. It's almost, it would be similar to exercise, I guess. It's like, you run for a couple of hours and obviously you're going to be tired at the end of it, but that doesn't mean that, it was a horrible process. You probably enjoyed the whole thing. You're just like, oh, okay, can't do that anymore. So it's the same thing with writing. Are you stuck on a loop?
I figured if I did it long enough, it might look like I was stuck in a loop, or if I was just Sam Bankman-Fried just shaking in an interview. But
It's just every once in a while, Greg just really needs to mess with the podcast listeners.
He's not
Well, it was funny because so Becca was doing it as well, but she was nodding, whereas you were going side to side. But on my Zoom, you're right next to one another, so I kind of thought the entire Zoom was glitching.
Look fantastic. Nice. Perfect.
Rusty, are you still driving or what?
Sneak peek.
Whoa.
Ooh, Rusty.
Is that a yellow dog?
Is that
Okay.
Oh, breaking news for
breaking news? Here we go. There's
another face change.
The new yellow dog coming to a store near you.
What do you think, Ellen?
Just in time for Christmas.
Would you have bought that instead of the little hodler?
MK4 fits inside.
Yeah, I think I prefer this guy.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Although it is cool that it has a little like pouch.
Little foundation devices in there.
Yeah. No. This is a Jade.
Oh, it's eight.
Yeah, it's a Jade hardware wallet. My son's doesn't know.
What's
What
his
happens if you turn
seed?
it on?
Say the seed, kid.
Yeah, kids, give us a seed, Chris.
Yeah, just don't say
Just
the
tell
words.
us the little words that are on there.
Yeah.
Sing the song.
Sing the song. Sing the yellow song.
Give us the jingle.
All right, so we're getting to the point of this show where I need to make sure that RD gets a chance to ask his question, his important question. So RD, if you could unmute, there we go. Unmute yourself and go ahead and ask Alan.
I've got my notes.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on, Alan. But this is the important question, mate.
It's all
If
building
the
up.
meme factory, if the meme factory did exist, and we all know it doesn't, who would you like? Who would you retweet? And who would you mute?
As in of the what 6
Of the meme factory. Yeah.
Oh, however many there are of us.
Yeah, who knows?
Obviously, we don't exist.
Well, I
but
mean, RD, I do retweet you all the time because you ask me to all the time. So,
Oh, busted.
Too easy.
With good
Growth
reason,
hack
right? Like
exploited.
to be clear, right? I don't retweet it because he asks. I am made aware of it because he asks, and then I think, oh, okay, yeah, I retweet that.
How does he ask? Does he come groveling to you? Does
Yeah,
he
I'm
do-
curious.
So it's quite a slick process. It's usually just like the tweet as a DM with no commentary,
Oh.
and then I do like a little laughing emoji reaction, and then I retweet it.
Like he made it just for you.
efficient.
I think sometimes he does. It's my
Okay.
impression, at least. I don't know. Ask him.
RD, do you
Where
make them
does the
just
yield
for him?
come from?
The friends we made along the way, and the FTX imposters as well. Apparently.
All right, so we got the retweet. Who you liking? Who you muting?
Who am I liking? I think I actually like Becca's stuff quite a lot anyway. This is kind of cheating because I'm just sort of telling you what I do anyway. What's already like on record. I think that's true. I mean, you can correct me if that doesn't actually
Yeah,
sound
maybe you
right.
can follow me back. That would be nice too. Maybe.
Unfortunately, I can't do that because I very strictly keep my follower count to 420.
Oh,
And I'm actually over it right now. I need to cull. I think I'm on like 423 at the moment.
okay. Well, if you cull a few
Nice.
and you're at 419, you can add me then. So I tried that. but-
424 you're on.
It's okay. It's okay, Becca. We're in a list. So
All right, and who are you muting?
Probably you.
Probably.
Smart move. Smart.
Tweeted a lot of nonsense this morning.
Good move.
All right, and
I mean, no, nonsense is fine. Like almost everything I tweet is nonsense. That's obviously not the real. Well, then again, maybe people mute me. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's like I tend to mute people for repetition more than anything else. It's like if they're constantly popping up and they're just always saying the same thing. It's like, okay, I've heard that. What like next? It's just like get off the feed. Like stop wasting my time.
right.
Stay humble, stack sats.
All right, so I'm going to let him
Are you
ask
trying to
a
get
question,
yourself muted or what? Like-
you asking?
All right, Alan, this is now RDS, the biggest question. I got an invite for you. Do you know what's happening? Block height 840,000.
No, is it your birthday?
Ooh, I wish I could time a thing, but I can't.
Oh,
But you
you
know what I
probably
can time on the
You could probably time it to
chain.
within like 100 or so.
Yeah, maybe. But here's what you can time on the time chain, something that will never change: halving every 210,000.
Oh, of course, right.
There is a halving, and so block height 840.
I didn't really pay attention to the number. Sorry, it's like a long way in the future.
Yes, yeah. We still got about a year and a half or so. We're throwing a halving party in El Salvador. We got the venue. It's
Cool.
gonna be popping. It's at a resort on the beach, and it's gonna be unlimited food, drinks. So come on down. We're inviting you to come down to celebrate the halving with the Meme Factory and all the Bitcoiners. Come and be there.
That would be awesome. If I can make it, I'm not promising now, but if I can, that would be fun.
promised,
I've never
yes,
been
I heard
to El
that.
Salvador yet, so that'd be a good excuse.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. You got to make the pilgrimage, and this is a great reason to go down.
Yeah. It is kind of become a pilgrimage. Yeah, like every Bitcoiner has to go once in their life.
Exactly. You got to go one time.
Not a cult, okay? It's not a religion. It's completely rational.
It's totally rational. All right,
If
so now
it's a cult, it's better than the dollar cult. At least that's the
the
truth.
Uncle Sam platform.
Yeah.
I was chatting with someone in Riga about because at that time I was still contemplating going to the one that's on now, I think, right? What's that called? Adopting Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were definitely, I forget who this was actually, but they were definitely going. And we were joking about how exactly this, right? That it's like, it's not a cult. Okay. I was like, okay, yes, it's a pilgrimage, but it's in no way religious. But we were thinking about how we could enhance this, basically, like how we could sort of bootstrap religious rituals around. Oh,
Is that Canucks?
Well, I'm still a bootstrap religious rituals around.
yeah, sorry. No, I got distracted. Bootstrapping religious rituals around this pilgrimage. So it's like, it's not just enough that you go. It's like, well, when you go, you then have to do X, Y, Z, right? And like, that's what everybody does when they go. But obviously we have to make it up, right? Because it doesn't exist. And so I think the best thing we came up with was something like, you have to go to El Zonte, you have to be like, you know, on the beach looking at the Pacific and light a dollar bill on fire and throw it into the ocean.
Oh.
Ooh, I'm gonna like.
Have you ever tried to throw paper?
No.
It's not
Well,
easy.
probably, but like not this way.
There's a
I've never lit money on fire before, so I don't really know what happens.
There's
We
a scene from a show called Arrested Development where a character by the name of Job is trying to throw a check into an ocean and it keeps flying back at him. That's all I'm thinking about. But
I was thinking as well, another idea we had, we didn't quite finish it off, but it was like the premise that there should definitely be something involving a volcano.
oh yeah,
Like that's very pilgrimage.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Pray to the volcano for another heaven.
I've been
It'll
down
always
there.
work.
You gotta go eat a pupusa. That's also something you gotta do. And that's like not Bitcoin related. That's just so solid.
I feel like it's Bitcoin related at this point.
Bitcoin's adopting it.
All right, Alan. So while you've got some of the meme factory in the same spot at this point in time, do you have any questions for us before we call it quits for the evening?
How much do you lose in FTX one by one?
0.
0.
0. 0.
What if we get like a Celsius and actually it all gets leaked? Are you sticking to 0?
Oh yeah,
0.
absolutely.
Yeah, well, my name's actually Abdul, so I don't think anybody will find me.
Yeah, nobody's finding Abdul.
The OPSEC.
Pedro
It's
Abdul.
not, you didn't register as re_tweet.
He definitely registered as a re. Now, I wanted to say thank you very much for your time, Alan. Appreciate it. We know it's scarce. Do you want to leave our viewers with anywhere?
I don't
anything?
have a very high opportunity cost. I wouldn't worry.
Where can our viewers find you? Where can they read your
If I
stuff?
wasn't here, I'd just be shit posting. So
You're
I
still
will come
shitposting.
back anytime.
You're still shitposting. All right, so where can folks find you if they want to find more of your content?
Basically just Twitter. Everything goes through Twitter. I mean, I'm trying to think what other content even exists. I guess all the like the Medium stuff, but it's easier to get that on Twitter than on Medium.
Okay.
They can get the book as well if they want. It's free. If you want a physical copy, you have to pay, but you can get a digital one for free.
And on Twitter, that's at AlanF32, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for showing up tonight. Really appreciate you coming. Take some of your time with us, Alan. Thank you for spending some of your time with us. Everybody have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Alan.
Cheers, Alan.
Thanks, guys.